This story is about arguably one of the most brutal street legal track cars in the world. Traction control wasn't even a feature until 2013, and it was only ever available in a 6-speed manual. Till this very day, it stalks and dominates the highways after midnight. It also has broken records at racetracks across an entire country. Just as savage as the machine itself are the drivers, the community that stands behind this car. So much so that when corporate execs from their glass towers announced that they would kill the platform, this small group of enthusiasts would vow to make sure it went out in a legendary way. 1 month before the cease of production, by themselves, without any marketing hype or corporate funding, they would seek to conquer the world's fastest production car record. For a second time. Let's take a quick moment to set the stage here. Arguably the most challenging track in the road, Nurburgring Nordschleife, or also known simply as the Ring or the Green Hill, has become the quintessential proving ground for the world's greatest car makers. For manufacturers who seek the title of world's fastest car, breaking a Nurburgring record is the standard. September 4th, 2013, the Porsche 918 Visa package made automotive history, running the world's fastest production car lap, and also being the first production vehicle to obtain a sub 7-minute lap time on the infamous Ring, with an official independently verified 6-minute 57-second lap record. The 918 uses a 4.6-liter naturally aspirated V8 based on the power plant from the RS Spyder P1 Le Mans race car, making 600 brake horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque. The 918 was also supplemented by 2 electric motors. There is a 154 horsepower motor aiding the V8 with power to the rear wheels, and another sitting over the front axle powering the front wheels when activated. Combined, this brings the 918's output to a whopping 875 horsepower and 944 foot-pounds of torque. The record car would also use what is called the Visa package. This is the $90,000 track option, which included magnesium wheels and a rear carbon fiber diffuser. The roof panels, windshield frame, and rear fenders were also carbon fiber. The chassis uses titanium hardware, ceramic wheel bearings, and a weight-optimized brake system, reducing the overall weight by 90 pounds. While Porsche's record-breaking 657 is quite well known amongst car enthusiasts, who and what held the previous records has been obscure at best. Pre-2013, the only claimed sub 7-minute production car lap record was the Radical SR8 with a 655, and the Radical SR8 LM with a 648. I spoke on these controversial lap records also in a previous video where I explained that these cars don't have the specific approval rating for British or European road legal standards. As even Sport Auto themselves, the group that conducted the lap test, do not consider the Radical SR8 to be a road legal production car. Now with that covered, we can focus on the 2 fastest acknowledged production car records on Nurburgring circa 2013, the Green Hill's top dogs of the era. Number 1 would be the Gumpert Apollo, which took the production car record back in August of 2009 with a 7-minute 11-second lap time. Though it's profoundly rare, the German supercar is considered to be a production vehicle, and depending on who you ask, there were at least 40 examples made. The $300,000 to $700,000 supercar was powered by a twin-turbo Audi 4.2 V8. making up to 800 horsepower mated to a 6-speed sequential gearbox. The chassis utilized front and rear pushrod suspension and had an overall curb weight of 1,200 kilograms or 2,600 pounds. The second fastest production car lap record pre-2013 was the 2010 Viper ACR. Also known as the Mark IV, it laid down a 7-minute 12-second lap time, practically a fingernail behind the Apollo. Interestingly enough, Dodge didn't acknowledge the Gumpert Apollo's lap time due to it not meeting their own standard of what a production vehicle is, thus making their ACR number 1 in their own right. Regardless, the Mark IV ACR didn't just hold a debatable record at the ring, it held 18 other production lap records across the United States at the time, including major circuits like Laguna Seca, Virginia International Raceway, and Willow Springs, just to name a few. It achieved this with the naturally aspirated 8.4-liter V10, making 600 brake horsepower and 560 foot-pounds of torque, made it to a 6-speed manual, specifically the Tremec TR6060. The 3,400-pound ACR did not have any power upgrades differing from the standard Mark IV Viper. However, the aerodynamic package allowed an incredible 1,000 pounds of downforce at 150 miles per hour. It of course included 4-wheel independent suspension that was user tunable thanks to the KW adjustable competition coilovers with remote reservoirs. All this for a remarkable $110,000 to $120,000 in 2010. Now that we have a bit of background established, we can jump to 2012 with the premiere of the Mark V Viper after its 2-year hiatus. Premiering at the 2012 New York International Auto Show, the newest Viper would officially be under the SRT brand. It would feature an all-new frame, being 50% stiffer than the Mark IVs thanks to the reintroduction of the magnesium beam and new aluminum crossbrace. The front midship V10 is 28 pounds lighter, but it still uses 8.4 liters of displacement. With an additional 40 pounds of torque over the previous gen, this would be the highest torque output of any production naturally aspirated engine in the world at the time. Horsepower would also receive a 40-point bump, bringing the total to 640 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque. To aid with the transfer of all that energy to the ground were the widest tires ever used in the history of the Viper, having 355s in the rear and 295s up front. The hood, roof, and rear deck would now be carbon fiber, making the body 32% lighter overall compared to the 2010 Viper, dropping 100 pounds exactly. The track package would be even lighter, shaving 57 pounds, bringing the total weight to just under 3,300. Let's put this into perspective. So in 2013, when released, if you bought even a base Mark V and added the $3,500 track package to it, in the context of power to weight ratio, you own one of the world's fastest production cars, ahead of the Aventador and even the ZR1. But it gets even better. We would see peak Viper performance with the release of the new ACR. This variant would include the same powertrain as the rest of the Viper lineup, but would be hands down the fastest Viper around the racetrack. The ACR Extreme Aero package produced an insane 2,000 pounds of downforce at 177 miles per hour. That's 1,000 pounds more than the previous generation ACR. The suspension was a race-tuned Bilstein coilover system that allowed a wide range of user adjustability. Still weighing under a respectable 3,400 pounds with the 50-50 weight distribution, the new ACR package would also include massive carbon ceramic Brembo brakes with a 15.5-inch front rotor. It retained the standard but massive tire specs, but now used bespoke developed Kumho Exta V720 tires. SRT would rightfully call it the ultimate street-legal, track-focused, hand-built American supercar, but those aren't just hollow marketing terms. They would prove it again and again. In 2015 alone, the ACR would break production car lap records across 13 different North American racetracks, following in the footsteps of the Mark IV's 18 records. The ACR's 1-minute 28-second production car lap record at Laguna Seca would stand for an entire 5 years, broken in 2020 only by the $1 million McLaren Senna P15. So for its time, the Viper in general was a complete and obvious success for FCA and the SRT team, right? Well, unfortunately, the platform's success on the track is not synonymous with the manufacturer's bottom line. Despite the epic performance success, Dodge dealers just couldn't move the $100,000 Vipers fast enough. Even after being forced to cut the price, sales failed to meet the projections of 1,500 units per year. It also didn't help that the C7 Stingray would premiere in 2014 with a starting MSRP of only around 50 grand. The Stingray wasn't a competitor to the Viper performance-wise, but it was a softer, easier-going alternative. Remember, the Viper platform was essentially a modern interpretation of the Cobra. It had a snug cockpit-like interior and only was available in a manual. Given the many other factors, it was simply a pure driver's machine. Following year in 2015, whispers actually began about production ending for the Viper when FCA signed a new labor contract with the UAW, or the United Auto Workers Union. The new contract did not include anything regarding the Viper's plant, or any new product for the plant to replace the Viper with. This was the Connors Assembly Plant in Detroit, Michigan, whose workers had produced 25,400 Vipers from 1992 to 2016. The next nail in the coffin would be FMVSS, or Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 226. This mandated that the Viper have side curtain airbags to continue production beyond 2017. The architecture of the Mark V just wouldn't support that type of integration. It had to be redesigned, and obviously that wasn't going to happen. The newly designed Viper had only been available for 2 years, plus they had only sold about 670 of them in 2015. In June 2016, it was publicly announced by Fiat Chrysler Group that the production of the SRT Viper would end.
This morning, a major announcement from one of Detroit's big three.
Yes, Fiat Chrysler is shutting down its Connor assembly plant that used to build the Viper.
Right.
Let's get over to Nick Monticelli. He joins us live outside of the plant on Detroit's east side. And Nick, this does impact some auto workers, but it looks like they're going to still have jobs.
Many of us in the car community were heartbroken by this news and once again felt helpless about another beloved enthusiast platform being killed off by corporate overlords. But there were other men that would take this as a call to action. January 17th, 2017, media entrepreneur and Viper race car driver Russ Oasis would begin to make history. For the first time ever that we are aware of, he would pioneer an enthusiast crowdfunded attempt to beat the Nurburgring lap record. Mr. Oasis' original crowdfunding page for the Viper lovers across the world started with, "Our beloved Viper has set 13 track records in the US. Let's go back to Nurburgring and retake the ultimate international crown as we sail into the sunset." In context to the new Mark V Viper, FCA showed no interest and was either content or complacent with their 13 US track records. While Russ did make it a point to take back the record from the battery-assisted 918, that was not his primary desire. You see, I was able to actually reach out to Russ Oasis personally to get his backstory on what actually triggered the Nürburgring campaign. His response is what I would define as peak automotive passion. Mr. Oasis told me, "It was my desire to beat the older record, which was set with the factory backing. The Gen 5 car was so superior to the Gen 4 that if the factory wasn't going to go back for another try, I was. It was a labor of love." An entire community would share the same sentiment. Within 5 days, Bernie Katz and Ben Keating of the Viper Exchange, Texas, will donate not only $10,000, but 2 GTS R-Spec Viper ACRs. These were no different than the Viper ACR Extreme, but had a paint scheme paying homage to the 1997 Le Mans winning Viper. Within 1 week, the GoFundMe was a third of the way to the $200,000 goal, and they already had 2 cars ready to ship to Germany. That dollar amount may seem like a lot, but it's important to note that at the time, 3.5 hours of solo sessions on the ring equated to $45,000, and that does not include travel costs or hotels. By June 2017, the campaign had not only met the $200,000 goal, but the privateers had secured official sponsorships by Kumho Tire, Team Tech, and Prefix Design, and also professional race car drivers Dominic Farnbacher and Lucas Stolz. Road and Track magazine would even partake in being the third-party observer, while Foxroad Films would document the entire event. Following the 2 ACRs on the way to Germany was a team of nearly 20 enthusiasts who volunteered their time out of pure love for the platform. It was official. The campaign was successful and the first scheduled lap session at Nurburgring would take place July 25th, 2017. As a reminder, the team of privateers would never receive support from FCA despite trying to request help several times. An important thing to consider here is that it's incredibly difficult to schedule private practice time on a Nurburgring. You have to schedule 6 months to a year ahead of time, and whatever weather lands on those days you simply have to deal with. So you may be able to guess what happened on July 25th, the team's first scheduled hot lap session. And just like that, 60 minutes of track time and $13,000 was lost, as that was the sum of the track and other logistical fees. Afterwards, Russ and his team would scramble in an attempt to purchase more track time from other teams. After noticing this, out of pure generosity and respect, the Nürburgring track staff were able to sell 30 minutes of their own track time that had allotted for track maintenance. Driver Dominik Farnbacher would take full advantage. On his very first solo lap, he ran a time of 7 minutes and 3 seconds. This lap time had confirmed what everyone had already theorized. The Merc 5 Viper ACR was in fact a sub 7 minute capable car, as his first ever hot lap would have likely been his slowest. Down would even reveal that his lap wasn't perfect. He would state that the transmission was fighting him during full throttle upshifts, and that this likely cost him 2 seconds. The other issue was that the traction control was left on initially. He managed to disable it but had to navigate through the menu while driving flat out. Unfortunately, this would be the last scheduled run for the team, as they had not been able to acquire more time and their other scheduled sessions had been completely rained out. Once again, Nürburgring staff would recognize what this team was attempting to achieve and did something that was unheard of. That following Wednesday, July 27th, 2017, the track staff would offer the team session time in the morning before the scheduled industry pool event. Fully embracing the opportunity, the team would be fully prepped and ready to go, conducting one warm-up lap and then proceeding to the hot lap. However, once again, the team would face adversity. During the hot lap session, the required industry pool radio became dismounted and slid underneath the brake pedal. This would completely kill Dominik's run, as he could not fully apply the brakes and would end up having to coast the car 10 miles throughout the rest of the track to the team at the start line. This, unfortunately, would be the end of the team's first attempt, as they were out of track time and money. The second trip back to the Green Hill would be almost a month later, beginning August 24th, with the team essentially having to start all over again. Driver Don Farnbacher would be accompanied by his brother Mario, who joined in on the practice and the record attempts. On Mario's very first hot lap, he would also clock a 7 minute 3 second lap time. Unfortunately, the Farnbacher brothers would have to leave due to race obligations. By September 1st, the team had no drivers and had to find replacements, fast. Luca Stolz would become available to fill the gap, and he also would recommend Lance David Arnold, who had no experience with the Viper platform but was highly experienced at the ring. The drama would continue to unfold during practice sessions, however. Luca would have a tire failure on the final straight. Lance would have a differential failure due to a loose drain plug. Now down to 1 car and 2 drivers, Luca would volunteer his seat time to Arnold. On his very first hot lap, having very little experience with the Viper, Lance Arnold would set a lap time of 7 minutes and 1 second. But Lance still had enough time for one more attempt, so he went to conduct his second hot lap. But then, at 160 miles per hour, while cornering, Lance's front left tire would fail. He would smack into the left-hand guardrail, bouncing him across the track to the opposite guardrail. Thankfully, he was unharmed. The Viper, however, was done for. This was the last remaining car, and so fate would have it, the team had to live with a 7 minute 1 second lap time. Imagine the state of the team and the emotional roller coaster they had just endured. It was admitted that they should have changed the tires after every lap, but time just simply didn't permit. Lance's car nearly had the same exact type of tire failure that occurred during Luca Stoll's session. It was as if the track and the extremely capable ACR just pushed the tire beyond its capabilities. Road and Track would quote Russ Oasis stating, "The combination of this powerful car and this track demands too much from any tire that can also be street legal." Sadly, Russ would also state, "This wraps up our effort trying to bring home the ultimate road wide production car record at the Nürburgring." After the hot lap record attempt in 2017, the ACR would turn out to be the third fastest production car in the world, behind the 918 Spider and Super Veloce LP750. Richard Winkles, the former Viper engineering lead, would state, "The car is certainly capable of more. There's only a couple cars in the world that can say they're better, but none of them with two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, and manually shifted." Now, I'm aware of the LP640's record of 6 minutes and 52 seconds that was set in October of 2016. However, at the time there was still much controversy surrounding the Huracan's lap time and its legitimacy. This is likely why the record was never a factor throughout this entire ACR timeline across the multiple publications that covered it. Regardless, I would like to appreciate the significance of what Russ Oasis and his crew of privateers accomplished. Russ would state that it was an honor working with drivers that were at such an elite level that they also had high hopes for the Viper themselves. He said everyone thought it was good for a 655 and that not one of them thought it couldn't do that. Ultimately, Russ would also state, "I love the car. I don't know what else to say. I just wanted to see it go out well. I did what I could to see it go out well. And we cut 11 seconds off the last generation's time, which is pretty respectable." Carroll Shelby would be proud. A bit of good news, both the sister Viper GTSRs were bought from the Viper Exchange. Apparently the buyer actually commissioned the Viper Exchange to fully restore the Viper that wrecked. We have this info thanks to a YouTube channel named RP Productions who visited the facility back in 2018. So it sounds like both Vipers are safe in someone's private collection. It was just awesome to hear that the wrecked sister wasn't totaled out and crushed. I also found out that the Viper Exchange is only 3 hours away from us here at Spec M. For the future of this channel, I think it would be great to visit and film some of these places that we talk about in our stories, like the Viper Exchange. Hopefully we continue to grow and this is achievable. Finally, it does pain me to inform you all that Bernie Katz, one of the co-owners of the Viper Exchange, passed away in March of 2020. Looking through old Viper forums, it's apparent that he was a well-known Viper enthusiast at the highest degree, a solid contributor to the community, and just genuinely a nice guy. May he rest in peace. I hope the retelling of this story honors Bernie, Russ, and all those who were involved in the Nurburgring campaign.